Hello and welcome to the Pursuit of Anime, where we talk a mix of anime and philosophy. We're just a bunch of anime nerds who like to think deeply, and today we are thinking deeply and meditating on why we build our identities around labels. Um, why humanity seems to have this tendency to kind of shape who they are based on labels, based on what they are called or what they call themselves. And you see this in real life. It's been a trending topic. It's been a controversial topic recently with the rise of gender fluidity, with the rise of trans rights issues, with the rise of even depictions in media. Right? I mean, and even with I think a misconception people have is even this identity and labels are something that everyone deals with. Everyone has to face, right? Who they truly are. And this is um, commonly depicted in media just overall, regardless of what the character's gender orientation is or sexual orientation is, or anything of that nature. For example, one of our most favorite characters, Nico Robin in One Piece, grows up with the identity of a criminal. And this shapes who she is, this shapes her decisions. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're going to get into today. How important a label should be to your identity, what you think. And of course, your hosts are myself, Raven, and Teddy.
Yep.
And we're hoping to keep it brief and concise. And yeah, so let's get into it, Teddy. What do you kind of feel about this for yourself before we kind of get into like a broad spectrum of just kind of the world and maybe some anime examples? Like, do you think that a label really is there any label that really speaks to who you are as a person?
Well, yeah, I feel like sometimes when it comes to labels, you have to look at, okay, what are you passionate about? What makes you, what brings you a lot of joy in life? Or what do you think defines you, right? And so, depending on that, you're going to use some labels to refer to yourself because those are uh, way to identify yourself, not just to other people, but to yourself as well, to let you know, okay, this is what I'm about, right? Say, for example, with you, with the music, if I say, I think you're a musician, that's a label, right? But that's because it applies to you, a passion of yours, something that you identify by. For me, I could say, I don't know, I'm an anime nerd or something. That's a label, right? It's like this is what I do. This is what I'm about. And so for the longest time, I always ever looked at it as a reflection of a aspect of your identity, right? What I started to get confused about was how in recent years you have people where their whole identity sometimes revolves around a particular label. Where I'm like, shouldn't that just be one facet of your personality? That can be just all that you are, right? I never look at a label as a way to identify an entire person. I always think that it's just one aspect, one facet of who they are. But then in today's day and age, you got people they go through life and it's like they feel the need to be validated in like through a particular label, and so they go out of their way to always insist on representing that, wearing that on their back, like, this is who I am, and make sure you don't get it wrong. And they do this everywhere they go. I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
understand the fascination with that.
Do you think that maybe the worldwide webification, like the internetification of today's society, so much of like, especially like for younger generations, so much of our lives are lived on the internet. Um, do you think that that kind of exacerbates this kind of idea that, well, I have all these eyes on me, um, and the way I present myself is important? I mean, for me, the way that I think, right? I
Mhm.
think that a lot of people, are concerned about the way that they present themselves to the world. It's the reason why, in my opinion, it's the reason why um, people are willing to go into debt just so they can buy luxury fashion when they're not rich and not living a luxurious lifestyle.
Hmm.
It's basically a status symbol. The crazy, expensive vintage Chanel bag that you bought and, you're now down on behind on rent for, it's a status symbol because now you can go out, take pictures with it. You feel like, even though life sucks, you feel like as if you're like living this life of luxury.
Hmm.
And it almost has this internet implication to it where like I have to show off um to feel good in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Um
absolutely. Yeah.
do you think that kind of ties into with not just with luxury fashion, but with just labels in general, where it's like, okay, I may not know exactly who I am. I still feel like I'm figuring it out, but I just feel like I have to slap a label on myself just so that I can present myself to the world because everybody else seems so secure in themselves.
Yeah. See, I had a conversation with a very close friend of mine a few years ago. Because I forget what was.
Oh, uh-oh. Teddy just dropped off. Let's bring him back in. All
Oh,
right, you're back in, Teddy. No worries.
yeah. I'm like, how did that happen? I was looking at thing, but so I guess right before I got cut out, I was saying that I had a conversation with a very close friend of mine a few years back, and I don't remember exactly the circumstances around it, but the topic came up, right? And they basically told me because I mentioned that I didn't understand why people couldn't just live their lives just being authentic, true to themselves without feeling the need to advertise a particular label, right?
Yeah,
And they were like, I think it's more so a way for them to find a place where they belong, right? Because there's a specific maybe niche or lifestyle that they thought they were alone in, but then through social media they realized they're not alone. There are other people who identify by that specific lifestyle or by that specific label, so then they use it as a way to bond and feel a sense of belonging, right?
yeah,
And they were like, so that's why people sometimes they go out of their way with those labels, because they feel like I can find my kindred spirits, folks that are just like me, through this label, and we can bond over that, right?
yeah,
And I feel like, especially with what happened recently with the pandemic and all that stuff, that probably got exacerbated even more, because with the isolation, now that everybody is doesn't have to quarantine anymore, it's like, oh, I really need to go out there and find people that are like me, right? And that's where the labels, that's where the power of the labels come in, because like, let's say for example, I'm really into a particular niche of fashion, let's say accessories, like eclectic rings, necklaces, things like that, and then you find people that are just like you in that aspect. There may not even exist a label around that particular hobby, but they will create one and then bond over that, right? They
yeah,
say like, I'm an accessorist, right? Ooh, I'm good. I came up with that on the fly. I didn't even think about that. But if,
yeah,
you think of, I'm an accessorist, so that's a label, right? And then they're going to think, okay, who are my fellow accessorists, and they bond over that. And not to rain on anybody's parade, but I find personally that's kind of like, it's a little bit silly at times, and also very restrictive, because just because you have a similar interest doesn't mean that you like get along like that. It just so happens that you both share that particular interest. Like, I'll give you an example for me, right?
yeah,
I have um I have a lot of, so it's a spectrum that ranges from close friends to acquaintances that play tennis. But some of them, we bond over other stuff beyond just tennis. But then the other ones, it's like tennis is our only commonality. Outside of that, we don't really jive, right? So it'd be silly of me to be like, oh, I'm a tennis player, and so I'm only going to go out there and find fellow tennis players because I feel like they can understand me. It's like, no, we just happen to share one particular, interest, but that's it. It's not everything, right? And I,
Yeah.
and I and I feel like when people use labels that way, it can be so restrictive because you're closing off your horizon. You're not seeing the bigger picture. You're limiting yourself in terms of connections you can establish with other people because you think I can only jive with people that share this particular label or that particular label. And that's why I'm like, at what point do you decide it's too much? Or like, how do you manage that? Do you say, oh, today I'm going to hang out with my fellow accessorists. Tomorrow I'm going to hang out with my fellow musicians. The day after, like, I don't know how that works, like how
Yeah.
they compartmentalize that, or if that's something they do, but I wouldn't know because I don't live my life like that.
Yeah, and it can be very limiting. I think, like, as we talk, something that's becoming a reoccurring theme or rising kind of topic is this idea that labels have power. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
and it can be positive or negative. There's actually a theory called the social identity theory that states that individuals they define themselves in terms of the groups to which they belong and the labels associated with those groups. And these labels, they can provide a sense of belonging and validation, but they can also create stereotypes, biases, and expectations that can lead to discrimination and prejudice. I'm sure we've all seen those videos of, like, for example, famous black men like Morgan Freeman, uh, or even Lil Wayne, I think had an interview like that where they said, like, something along the lines of basically like, what is it like to be like a African American or a Black American, and these gentlemen saying, well, I'm not an African American, I'm not a Black American, I am an American, and I don't want you to put your label on me, you know. Um, I think Morgan Freeman, his quote was like, "I'm not a black man, I'm just a man." Like, once you drop this label of race, you will see that we're both just men and we can connect more deeply. I'm sure you've seen that interview, Teddy, at least like a little clip because it was very
Oh yeah,
famous.
I've heard of it. It's a pretty iconic interview.
Yeah, this is very, very, very thoughtful, very thought provoking. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
because he was trying to draw the conversation away from the race thing. He was like, "Listen, this is not about race. It's about being a human being. Like what I go through, what I experience, other people may experience that too, and they don't have to be black to be able to relate to my experience, right?"
And that's the thing. That's where my kind of issue with sometimes with labels, it's not with the labels themselves, it's with the extent to which that people let labels dictate their lives in the world and society and the way that certain groups of people should interact. At the end of the day, we're all just humans, and I've often come across people that they separate people into these labels like they're herds, like they're animals on a farm, and they're supposed to behave a certain way because because a man is a man and a woman is a woman. I mean, I've served. This is a bit of a strange story, but there was this one time this couple came in. They were a bit older, and it was a man and a woman, husband and wife, and they
Mhm.
sit down, and the man uh, calls me over and he says, I want some wine. Can you recommend me some wine with the food I'm having? And he's having a fairly light dish, like a little salad. So of course I recommended him like a white or a rosé um, wine, that is, and he said, "Well, listen, that sounds like my wife kind of thing. I'm a man. I need to drink red wine." So you see where
Wow.
so you see where these labels can kind of get a bit silly, where it's just like,
Hey,
well,
listen, man. Quick side tangent. I got no shame about my fruity drinks. You feel me? I would. Listen. Those labels they mean nothing to me. But yeah, go ahead.
exactly. Like, that's the thing. I'm a guy, but fruity drinks are some of the best drinks. Like,
They're delicious.
they're delicious. I don't know why people hate on them. They're
Yeah,
so it's like satisfying.
it's like, oh, if you're a guy, you either drink beer or you drink like the darkest of wines, or you drink like those like just hard straight liquor. shots or whatever, no chaser. Like, man, leave me
Straight
rum and coke.
oil.
Yeah,
Straight oil. They want you to drink like straight oil. Like
I'm good, man. I'm good.
just to show that you're a man.
I like to enjoy life. I don't feel like living my life trying to prove something to other people that probably don't even care about my existence like that. So I'm good, man. I'm good.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that because a lot of people they build their identities around these labels and they've like one of the issues I know that a lot of Americans have is like, well, don't shove your identity down my throat or don't shove your ideals down my throat. Well, if a lot of people had what you just said right now, where it's like, listen, I have my identity and I'm confident in it, but if you don't like it, screw you. You know, it doesn't matter to me. I'm still who I am. And more often, well, not more often, but more and more, I'm just meeting these people who are super confident in who they are. Um, in any field of life, whether they're a musician, whether they're, a sommelier, like a wine expert, whether they are even gender fluid people who identify as they, them or something, people that like, they're like, listen, um, and we know how that can get. We know that it can get very tricky, especially in America. But I've met a lot of people who say, listen, I identify with pronouns that are very unusual for most people, but I could care less what um what anybody else says about me. I'm just unapologetically who I am, and nothing else anybody can say will really affect me. And I feel like more people should have that attitude. Um I feel like it would be beneficial to society, it would be beneficial to the self. I feel like it's definitely beneficial to myself to have that mentality as a person because there have been times where people have tried to put labels on me, and the best response that I've ever had was to not let it waver me, to not let it sway me, to not let it affect me at all. The worst times in my life have been when I've let other people's opinions about who I am affect me and dictate, the way that I act. Life is too short to be like wallowing and worrying about what other people think of you. And
Absolutely.
it's so simple, but it's true.
It's interesting the timing of this episode because I just binge watch a show like an anime last night that deals with the with the topic of label and self identity. Because
Mm,
this character, yeah, he's originally a boy, right? But through a series of events, he ends up in a situation where he's about to die, and he has an older sister. And the way that the this doctor found to save him, and I guess it was through the sister's wishes too, was to transfer the boy's consciousness into his sister's body. So when he wakes up, he's like, I'm a guy, but why am I in the body of my sister? So it creates this weird thing because then he goes on this journey with this other guy who ends up hitting on him. He's like, but I'm a dude. It's just I look like a girl on the outside. But then as the story goes on, you see the continuous struggle because even though his mind is still that of a boy, he has the body of a girl, meaning that there are going to be certain emotions, certain feelings that he gets that are more often associated with a girl, right? And
yeah,
so it's this weird thing. It's actually a very kind of compelling experience to watch unfold because like how do you like just imagine if that happened to you. How do you deal with that? Because I've said this before. I'm a guy through and through. Like I'm a dude, right? I can't imagine my consciousness being transferred into a woman's body. I would not know how to act, bro.
yeah.
Like I don't know how to. So when I watched, I was like, yo, that's gotta be rough. That's gotta be so rough. And then there's
I know what
something
I'm
that
doing
happens
first.
later on. Oof. But yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. That sounds very interesting. It almost reminds me of Your Name in a way, but not, not romantic.
yeah.
Um, have you ever heard of the story of the stalking cat? The guy who had surgery to become a cat, basically.
Ooh, that sounds a little bit drastic. No, I never heard of that.
Yeah. Oh my god. Let me see if I can pull it up as we're talking. So basically, this person, they were named Dennis Avner, I think. I'm gonna search it up right now as we speak. But oh yeah, it's Dennis Avner. So they um wanted to become a cat, and they did that. They
Oh my
they got
goodness. Did
surgery.
somehow manage to do that?
They like literally, and you're gonna see some pictures coming up on screen right now, like a little Google search.
Okay.
They became a cat, as you can see here.
That's insane.
You're
That is
seeing it, Teddy.
actually, yeah, I do. I do. Like, that is so unhinged, bro.
So they went through like crazy bottom modifications, and I think he actually was. Yeah, it says here he was a Guinness Book of World Record holder. For the most permanent transformations to look like an animal, which is a very specific world record to have. But
I don't even know why that exists.
yeah, I think they created it for
Just
him.
for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it's as you can see here in the full glory, everything here. Um,
You know, this is gonna sound probably uh, mean to some people, but this is mental illness. We are facilitating mental illness by allowing these people to go through modifications like that. But that's just me, man. I think it
yeah,
might be a little bit spicy of a take, but I don't think because it, I'm just thinking like that's and I know we've had this conversation before when like we talked about what we all perceive as normal, but I'm sorry, that is so abnormal. That is not like part of what I consider to be the normal human experience. But that's
yeah.
just me. I just go by what I've seen around me and what I've known people to be like normally. This this is problematic. I'm sorry. The last time I remember somebody doing something like that was they identified as a dragon. And
What?
yeah, yeah, if you look it up, it's actually really shocking because they went through a transformation where I think they got scales drafted onto their body or something like that. Like they tattooed their whole body or something, and it just started looking like something else. Like I'm talking, even eyeballs got inked up. So it was
Oh my
just
gosh.
freaky. It was freaky. I see that I'm like, clearly there's something there. They're not well. There's no way, and we're just allowing it because it's that shock value. It's that um kind of out there crazy story that you can tell people because something that is unfortunate about human nature. We are attracted to negativity and chaos sometimes, and when we see something that is that deviant, it's almost like a freak show, right? And people like to put it on display and talk about it and explore it because it's something to talk about. It's a crazy story, it's something I'm like, I'd rather not have a crazy story to talk about. It's like that. I'm good. To me, that's just really disturbing and unsettling. I don't like it.
Yeah,
It's again, like I said, it's got to be some kind of disorder, something with, and that's the thing too. Going back to the topic of today's podcast, where sometimes people create labels around some sort of ailment or like a natural predisposition that they have. And I think to myself, I'm like, do you think this is actually something beneficial to you to bond over with other people? And I know it's getting into a territory where I might start sounding a little bit judgmental, but that's just how I feel. And
yeah,
that's kind of the nature of this podcast. We're just talking about how we feel. And for me, I'm just thinking that is not, I don't think it does anything good for you. If maybe for the same, like, unless you're looking at it in terms of I need to find other people that are like me so we can all work on a way to get better because this is not normal. I'm pretty sure those people themselves, They know it's not normal, but instead of putting in the work and doing the effort to overcome it, they choose to give into it.
Yeah.
And we allow that, we facilitate that as a society in
Yeah.
today's day and age. And to me, that's one of the ways that enabling all these labels can become dangerous, because you're saying, oh, this is part of your identity. Well, that's okay then. That's cool. Just go ahead and do that. And that's where we start to enter murky waters, because you got people that are pedophiles and they bond over that fact, right? I forget what was the name that they had for themselves.
Oh, I really don't even remember.
Yeah, that
It's a very like commonly used mundane word, like flag or something.
yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. It was a term that they use, like something about people that are attracted to
It was something
younger.
minor. It was something something minor attracted people or something. Map.
Yeah, map.
Map.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What? Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
map.
exactly. That was something like that.
Something like that.
I'd rather call it mad. Mine is attracted disorder, because that's not
Oh,
okay.
bruh.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean
know.
that's just a different level. So as you can see, we're starting to get to like the extreme of like labels, of course, that have crossed with basically pure evil at this point. I mean, with this, with what the last example. Um,
I
and the
know
thing is,
it's
this
demented
is
and deviant.
this is where the social kind of opinion can be positive because as we started, we were talking about how like what others say, you shouldn't care about. It's negative. Just screw it, you know. But at to a certain extent, though, you can't you can't have that extreme where you just don't care at all about what other people say because if you do that, then these things can happen. You need that social kind of accountability. You need to be held under the fire and kind of tested by your peers or society as a whole, thrown into the gauntlet, and things that are acceptable and not acceptable or deemed moral by society, like the last example, should be discarded and they shouldn't be accepted or allowed. You know. Now I do understand there's some labels that society does not accept that really don't deserve the criticism that they get. You know. Um, of course,
Hmm.
one of the most common or like noteworthy, not maybe not noteworthy, but most more recent and imminent, especially in America, is any label regarding race. Americans are very, 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 you know, critical of different races and different ethnicities, and I mean we see it all the time. There's no need to even mention which specifically. We all know examples. You don't have to explain what's understood. Um,
Hmm.
and and in that case, yeah, you can see where like this shouldn't really exist. People should not be people should not be berated because they have this label, which I mean, like some people say, they're not. I mean, they're born with because just because they have a certain skin color, they come from a certain country. Now they have this stigma, this stereotype that's encapsulating them that the world is putting on them. They didn't put on themselves. They're not walking around, and like this is all who I am, you know. That's just the way that it is, but it's a sad kind of world that we live in where sometimes labels get given too much power. And I think there has to be a balance between labels, between I guess the opinion of society as a whole and your opinion of yourself. There has to be a balance of it and there has to be compassion, empathy, and everything in the mix, and of course, righteousness. Jesus Christ! I mean that that whole map thing. There's not a
It is really
universal.
kind of demented. That's sick. That's just sick.
Yeah,
And that's
that's
the
not even.
thing. Yeah, like where I feel like when we start allowing people to have labels, where do we draw the line? Right? Because they'll be like, see, because when we start allowing everything, then you give ground for people like that to complain about not being able to, live their best lives through that label. Because it'd be like, oh, so you get to decide that, you're either trans or something like that. We just happen to like young people. What's wrong with that? Why can't we do? You see,
Yeah,
and
that's ridiculous.
it gets really dangerous. We get into murky territory when we do that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, well, trans people are well within the law, and they're not doing anything
exactly, they're not hurting
wrong.
other people. They're not hurting innocent lives. So that and that's the thing, right? When you try to reason with those people, you have to remind them this is not the same. What you're doing is objectively wrong.
And you know
And
what?
yeah,
What you said is something that I feel strongly about this whole idea. Like, there's these words like, oh, what's oh, and we have Majias in the chat, by the way. Shout out to Majias. He said,
Majis.
we don't but don't we label people in groups, or is that just prejudice? What really just depends, because when you label people in groups, of course, if a person is
It's
from
like
freaking
specific characteristic that you can identify them by.
exactly. If a person is from the Middle East, or Lebanon specifically, they would most people would be from Lebanon, probably would be proud to say they're Lebanese. Same thing with like Turkey and Turkish people. Same thing with Colombia and Colombian people. They're proud to be part of that nation, and that label can give them strength and a sense of belonging and identity. Um, but the problem is when it steers too far in one direction,
Mhm.
where like when outside forces start saying, well, all Colombians are like this, or if let's say a Colombian person is too arrogant about who they are, they're like, yeah, well, Colombia is the best country in the world. Every other country is complete
So
trash. It's arrogance.
I like this example that you gave because I feel like to the point that we're trying to make about labels, there is an extreme version of that, and that's patriotism, like extreme patriotism. People, they're like, it almost seems like they're brainwashed into believing that the nation that they're from is the superior race. That's how you have people like the Nazis. Right?
Yeah,
That was an extreme ideology that got pushed way too far and that got enabled to prosper as much as it did. So that's what we're talking about, right? Where it's like it's fine to have labels to identify a certain way, but then when you take it too far, which is human nature, anything that we ever take too far, it turns negative real quick.
yeah. We're all about excess and gluttony, and just excess amounts of cheese,
Overabundance.
mac and cheese. Oh, I need mac and cheese. Like,
You know
that's
that
not.
mac and cheese example is always going to speak to me.
It always will, and it's true, because people are like that, dude. You know which example speaks to me? It's the pardon my French, the barbecue sauce. Like the sauce, just sauce. Oh, I need sauce. Oh my god, the Chick-fil-A sandwich isn't seasoned enough. I just need to drown it in sauce.
More
Oh,
sauce.
sauce.
Don't forget the peanut butter on there too.
Yeah.
Ah, uh,
Yeah. So it's
shout
like,
out, you know who, but
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, with these labels, you can't let them rule you. It's like a horse. It's like what man, I forgot what Zangetsu taught Ichigo, but he was basically saying Majai says, I see diabetes in your future. That's true.
Oh man.
Yeah, so like that's the thing, like you can't let Zangetsu was saying something to Ichigo like, listen, your sword is like the horse, and you have to be the king, you know?
Yeah.
You can't let the horse steer
Dictate
you.
you. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And it's the
Hmm.
same thing with the sword. Right now you have so much power, but you don't know how to like rein it in and really steer it. So now you can't control it. That's why you suck. So you need to have that king energy, you know, that Giga Chad
Mm.
energy, and
That BDE baby.
yeah, exactly. That King Kitan Mega Giga Drill energy,
Yeah.
and bring her in. Yeah, dang. Oh, we have 3 viewers now, actually.
Oh
Nothing.
wow, look at us cooking.
Nothing is in
That's
the
one that
chat.
we had in a minute.
This is actually a really beautiful moment, because Nothing was, I think, one of our first subscribers, first commenters on the channel, and I don't think we've ever been able to catch them in a live stream. So shout out to you, Nothing. Your support is invaluable to us. It's
I
we
always appreciate it, man.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is really amazing. So yeah, I mean, Teddy, what do you kind of think is as a solution to this whole identity crisis, if there even is one, or a label crisis?
Honestly,
Um,
man, I think it's both pretty simple, but like I mean, it is simple, but it's not easy, right? And a lot of it requires, first of all, introspective work and acknowledgement from the people that push those labels too far, that it is too far, right? But it's a lot that goes into it. I know today we're a little bit short on time, so that's something we can really get into another time, because I feel like that could go into crazy side tangents. But yeah, it's kind of loaded, man. It's a loaded topic.
It's a loaded topic, and I know that there's a recent character in One Piece, Yamato, who had mixed reviews based off of.
She was the
Oh,
topic
there
of
you go,
conversations.
there you
Like,
go. What do you mean
listen,
she?
Mo. I listen. They were at the center of many conversations about not only their role in the story, but also who they are, like what they identify as. And Oda is such a troll because he enjoys the discourse, he enjoys the debate, so he keeps flip flopping around it. Like one time, you know what he did? You know what he did?
What?
He did a um a cover page, or like a color spread, illustrating all of the most prominent women in One Piece. And guess who was on there?
Yamato?
Ah, but then in the story, he's gonna have her talk about, I'm Oden and stuff like that. So like he enjoys it. I'm pretty sure he knows what's up in his mind. Yamato is definitely a girl. It's just that she identifies as she doesn't identify as being a man, right? She just identifies as being a particular
Yeah, like
man.
literally, she literally identifies as
Just
being a man,
Oden. Like she
like a
doesn't
certain
think
man.
I'm a dude. Yeah. So I don't know why the confusion ever happened in the first place. Because I thought it was pretty clear from the onset, right? It's just that um our beloved woke warriors took to the street.
Oh, and with that, Teddy gets cut off. Nothing says I do believe that we do build our identity for our egos. I think that's definitely true because humans are definitely egotistical creatures. Like we're social creatures first, of course, right? But
Mhm.
we do it to serve our egos as well.
That is
And
true.
I feel like we do build our identities for our egos as well, which is why we can never take it to the extreme, because if we build our identity for our egos, um it can serve as a positive thing. Like let's say, for example, I'm going through a time where I have very low self-esteem. Let's just say I went through a breakup or something and I feel horrible about myself, right? And I find identity in the punk rock community. Let's say I start dressing like punk rock and, like gothic. And I find identity in that. I'm a goth now, And that gives me a boost of self-esteem. That can be a healthy little avenue that you can build a little label, a little new part of yourself around. But where it becomes unhealthy is if you take it to the extreme and now all of a sudden, well, you're the hottest ticket around town, nobody can touch you and now you're above other people and you start treating other people negatively. And um I think, if that makes sense to you, Teddy, I don't know what you think about that. Exactly, superiority complex.
Hmm.
That's what it starts to build inside of your mind. And you can never let it really get to that point. Because if you do, it can start to become self destructive, as we were talking about before. The labels can start to become self destructive. And like we were just saying, you are on a horse and you have to be the one steering the horse. You can't let the horse steer you. And that's what a label is. That's what identity is. The identity and the label is all just like a horse. It's just a vehicle, a vessel that contains you, but you still hold it in your hand. You can pour out that wine that is you, or that little water or that cocktail that's you at any point in time to any degree that you want. You can't let it fucking pour you. But what do you kind of think about that, Teddy? Like, do you think that there's some people that they let their identities and labels start to kind of get to their head and build a superiority complex in them?
Oh yeah, man. I feel like that's just that's the history of humanity, bro. Because remember, that's what happened with the Nazis, or with Hitler and all, where they identified as the superior race, and it got to the head, and we saw what happened, right? So I think that's just something that we're prone to do, and we have to make sure not to go there, right? And sometimes it can be more challenging, especially when you can see the prospects of what doing that can bring to your life. The
Yeah,
temptation is real when you can, when you, and you see that even on social media, where you have some people, right? They don't, whatever label that they use to make money on social media, that's not even who they really are. But they decide, you know what, this thing is very beneficial to me, so I'm gonna act like this is what I'm about.
yeah,
And at some point, this is something that I was thinking about earlier too. It's like when you go too far with it, you start to lose yourself,
yeah,
and you forget who you really are, right? And you never wanted to get to that point. So
yeah. And there's actually this example of I just thought of it and this is not something that I've lived or seen like directly, but I've heard that in China, um, or in certain cultures, if you are over the age of like 30 and you're not married, you are looked at as being left over, and society labels you as a leftover woman. You are not married by the time you're 30. I mean, you're basically useless to them. So they start labeling you as a leftover. Um, and I just started thinking about that, and I don't know what happens. I've never met anybody. Like, I've never even seen a documentary, really. I've only, like, read articles or seen very short videos. But I can only imagine that being labeled that by society can be very detrimental to the way you look at yourself, your self-esteem. And it can even cause like a negative spiral where you start to maybe let yourself go. You don't take care of yourself anymore. You start to think, well, it's all over for me. I'm never gonna get married. My value and my worth is gone because of this horrible label that has been thrust upon me by society that I don't really even deserve. It's not true. And that's the point I think I'm trying to come on, is that sometimes these labels that are put on you aren't true, aren't truly who you are. And I think the most important labels that you can have are the ones that you feel strongly about, that you put upon yourself, because these women aren't left over. I'm sure they're beautiful, and they have so much more worth than being married to begin with. I mean, it's a straw man and a filibuster to begin with, to assume that their value is based on whether they get married or not. In general, what if they don't want to get married at all? So that's the issue with these labels. And this is going to be something that you probably like, Teddy, because I usually talk bad about this series, but one of the best examples of this um, is My Hero Academia with Deku.
oh, here we
He
go.
he was born how he was born. You gotta let me cook. Let me cook.
Bro, I'm
I
surprised you
probably
said cooking, but go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I'm surprised too. I'm surprised. We really got to wrap it up soon, but I'll kind of end my point with this because I gotta get to a meeting, and we'll get to what Majias and Nothing are saying in just a second. But Deku, he was born with absolutely no quirks, so he's powerless. In a world of people that have quirks, he was born with none. And so he gets labeled throughout school as somebody. I mean, it's not just his label, it's who he is, right? He's somebody without a quirk. But because he doesn't have a quirk, he gets labeled as somebody who's weak, somebody that can't really, somebody who's going to fall behind. They're never going to, somebody that can't be a hero. And what's his dream? It's to become a hero. So the label that society put on him directly conflicts with who he wants to be. And what ends up happening, of course, we all know he ends up getting a quirk. But honestly, the negative label that society put on him was honestly one of the best things that could have happened to him, because it drove him to kind of start studying and thinking of ways that he could um become a hero. Nothing really amounts to anything, obviously, as we know. But at least it contributed him to him studying quirks and learning a lot and becoming a nerd about it. And I think that attitude can be beneficial if society is labeling you as useless, or you're mentally ill if you call yourself this way, but you aren't in your heart. Um, you can use that as a driving force to propel you, you know? Ariana Grande just came out with a song called Yes and, where people are, I don't know what the hell they were saying about it, but they're criticizing her. And she comes out with a song saying, like, yeah, and, Like if you have something to say it with your chest. And that attitude can be very beneficial to have as well on the other side of things. But let's get to Nothing real quick, who's saying, I struggle with my superiority complex, but I know why. Me and other get to have one is because of our lack of self. So he's saying basically that the lack of self can contribute to having a superiority complex. And Majai says, I genuinely believe most people want to be superior. You even see that in countries where race is not an issue. And it's true. People are that's why it's called the rat race. People are always looking to get up. There's the crab in a bucket syndrome I'm sure you've heard of, where if you have a bucket full of crabs and there's one crab that's about to escape, the others will pull the crab back down because they don't want to see anybody else succeed, but them.
It's
And
like, why do
nothing.
you get to make it and I don't?
Exactly. And it's such a horrible mentality. Nothing continues saying, I was learning about the placebo effect on how your thoughts affect matter with the rice in a jar, and I was thinking about how your thoughts about how your body affects that. So yeah, I mean there is a placebo effect too, where like your thoughts can definitely influence who you are. Your thoughts really leak into everything else. It's like and Majias is saying great point. So
That's
yeah,
why whenever you go to the gym, man, whatever part of your body you're working on, make sure you channel your thoughts towards that. So if you're working chest, like grow chest, grow with every rep. You have to think about it, right? Be intentional with it. It can help.
yeah. And there's even people that they say, oh man, and we're gonna get into this again, but remember Clara Dow, Teddy?
Why are we bringing her up now?
There's this person, there's this youth. So for Majias and Nothing and any viewers that are watching, because there's one more viewer. Shout out to that one other viewer. Um, there's this person called Clara Dow. She made a video, basically, long story short, that whenever she goes to the gym, she's getting all this criticism from people. Oh, you're so skinny. Oh, what's this little girl doing at the gym? Oh, she's ugly. Oh, her butt is flat. And there's all these criticisms. Oh, a woman shouldn't be lifting weights. And like it's like a lot of criticism which like I'm sure like exists out there in the world, but I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be completely honest, and you can flame me in the comments, you can, whatever, you can disagree, but I don't think she faces that like that. Like the way that she depicted it in that video, I just really don't think so. And that might have not been what she's trying to say, that she does face that. Maybe she's just doing the content for the people, like an amalgamation of what other people face on a daily basis or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think that ties into what Nothing's saying about the placebo effect, about how your thoughts affect the matter. Because at that point, I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think you are thinking that's what other people think, and you're letting that weigh you down, others' opinions. And that's why I opened up with saying, like, you should not let other people's opinions dictate the way that you move, the way that you act, and who you are. Even if it's true, even if, like, it's true that they do think that. And Nothing concludes that it's easy to give into the negative side. It is. We have a tendency to move towards the darkness.
Have you noticed how sometimes like you can have so many positive comments on a video on a post, but it's the negative ones that stand out the most. Even if like they're not necessarily true, it's like there's something about it that grabs your attention naturally. So it's a thing.
I've even seen videos, Teddy, recently of like, and this shocked me because you used to see videos of people who were overweight on YouTube. They're like, oh, this is day one of my fitness journey. Look at me work out, and people would always be like, oh yeah, go, like yeah, do it. Like good job, man. Like respect. Now the comments are like, yeah, good work, planetary. Have you seen those comments? Like oh yeah, like the Earth just got a new orbit. So a lot of people have these negative things to say about these people who are not bothering anybody, and they're actually doing a very positive thing. So I don't know if it's a social media thing that's making people more negative, where it's almost becoming a funny thing. I know that making self-deprecating jokes is very common among today's like generation. Cognitive distortion adds to this, definitely. Yeah. What do you think about that, Teddy? Have you seen that? What I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, I have. The thing is, it's a mix of different types of people that leave comments like that. You have the people who are actually in the same situation, but they're not doing anything about it, and they're jealous to see somebody else actually taking matters into their own hands. You have people who are just straight up trolls, right? They don't know what it's like to be that big because they've always been fit or in good shape or whatever. So they have a kind of like almost an inflated sense of self and a distorted perception of reality because that's just not part of their reality. So they're really demeaning and condescending by saying stuff like that. And and you have trolls, just straight up trolls. Like they don't have anything better to do. They decide, hey, you know what? Let me just go ahead and post something like that. And that's the thing where for me, I've noticed just on that particular topic, I don't believe everything needs to be turned into content. I don't believe everything needs to be documented. A lot of the people who try to document their journey, they rarely ever make true progress, and then oftentimes they fail because you you're focusing more on putting out content than you are on improving your quality of life, right? Like the people that usually get the most positive comments, in fact, almost always nothing but positivity, are people who show the work after it's done.
Yeah,
Like, so they've done all the work behind closed doors and then they show it. They're like, so this is what I did. And if you're trying to get like me, here's like a blueprint of what I did to get there. Maybe you can find inspiration or So that's the thing. And I don't know. That's just in that particular lens, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing that happens all the time. Like even recently with Kevin Hart, there's a special that Cat Williams did on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp, and he talked about many of the well kept secrets of the Hollywood industry, specifically with the comedians,
yeah,
right? And so Kevin Hart was part of the topics of conversation of that podcast. And every time now Kevin Hart posts anything, you see people trying to address that.
yeah,
And like so you have yet to address the accusations that were dropped about you by Kat. So what do you have to say to that? And he
yeah,
hasn't said anything. And with each day that he's silent about it, people just grow more and more impatient. So you see in the comment section, like he dropped a movie recently that's number one, but it's only number one because a lot of people watch it. It's not that good based on some of the reviews that I've seen. Like a
yeah,
lot of people thought it wasn't good, but he still got the numbers, right? And so he's posting on it about it on social media and all that. And everybody in the conversation always said, like, listen, man, this was this was trash, right?
yeah,
Like that, it wasn't it. And he ignores it and he keeps pushing. That's great, but I feel like those negative comments they probably get to him, right? And he
yeah,
has to do his best to push past it because he knows that the way social media is, when you respond to negativity, you lost
yeah.
more often than not, right? So he's playing it right. He just has to ride out the wave, right? That's kind of where he's at right now.
True. Yeah. And I'll end with this point because I do gotta go. I've been pushing it too long. I'm gonna have to take a
I'm
goddamn curve.
surprised. I'm like, yo, this dude really.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
take a Jesus Murphy. I'm gonna have to take a goddamn curb after this one, but to get to a meeting. But I'll end on this, and this is a very good point that Nothing made. Pulling people down equals feeling a sense of power, and power is equated to happiness or happiest. So sometimes with these labels, I think an extreme that people go to is that the labels can give you a sense of power, like and the identity. You feel powerful, and if you let them like only do that, um you lose the reality of it, which is that when you were born, you're born without like really labels. I mean, you're born with some labels, boy, girl, and a name, stuff like that, and of course where your parents are from and where you were born at. But like you do you are born very bare in terms of the amount of labels that you do have. Yeah. And so you had to realize that beyond any labels, beyond any identity, the point is that I'm trying to get to, let me land the plane, is that um, You have power in you inherently as just a human being. There's power in you. There's the capacity for joy, love, hate, and everything that this universe has to hold. It's within you. Now, labels can be fun, empowering. Identities can be amazing. Identity is necessary for everyone on this planet, but like I said, it's you're the king or the queen, and the identity and the label is the horse, and you can't let it dictate you. You have to dictate it. And it's the same thing with society. Don't let society's opinion completely dictate you. Of course, have an open ear and listen, but don't ever let anybody tell you who you are and who you aren't. And on that note, nothing does 60 push-ups max, which is,
It's
not
pretty
bad.
good.
It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
But Teddy, do you kind of have any last words for the people, for nothing, Majais, and this other like one viewer that's been watching us? And
Nothing, man. I mean, listen, bro. You already that conclusion was pretty powerful. Like, I don't feel like adding anything after that because the only thing that I would add would be something a little bit silly, which is that if you're a man and you enjoy your fruity drinks proudly. You feel me? Ain't got no shame in that. So
yeah, exactly. You don't have to drink straight engine fluid just to show that you're a man, which I think
exactly.
was the funniest example of the goddamn show. But this was an awesome talk, Teddy. I really would, if I didn't have a meeting to get to, we would keep going for maybe
I
even an
know.
hour longer, because
Yeah.
this is so much fun talking, and we have nothing in the chat, Majais. Hopefully next week we can you know we can do the same thing. Of course, we keep it on Thursdays around this time, every week. We lead very busy lives, especially me as a New Yorker with so much going on. But yeah, this has been the pursuit of anime, and this has been why we build our identities around labels. Um, no box juice, and it's been fun talking to you guys, and let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.